Welcome to my channel. It's time to take you on my traveling from UK to Africa. It's been 2 years in the waiting because of the pandemic. We were not able to travel. So this is how it works now. Traveling abroad is completely different from time before the pandemic. There's COVID rules. So before you travel, obviously you have to have your traveling documentation which are valid. You need to have your negative test for the PCR COVID test. Your COVID test, which is the PCR, should be like within 72 hours when you reach your destination. So I did mine at Stratford Center in Stratford. So I did mine 48 hours before I traveled. And I'll tell you one thing. It's nerve-wracking waiting for those results. When I was waiting for the results, I was thinking like, how about if I become positive, that means I have to cancel my flight, I have to cancel my journey, and also I'll have wasted all my annual leave which I have requested. So that was difficult to wait for the results. And anyhow, my results came only after 36 hours, just only a few hours before I start traveling. So, and it was negative, and the journey started. Heading towards the airport, which is Heathrow Airport, again, there were a lot of uncertainties because before the pandemic, we tried to travel and our flights were cancelled. So we're not sure if we were going to face the similar situation. But anyhow, checking in was very smooth. There was not a lot of people at the airport. And Virgin Atlantic, my favorite flight, they gave us a small package. As you can see, that package contained some masks, some sanitizers, everything that you need to make sure you don't get contamination from the coronavirus. And I don't think if I mentioned the flight fares, they're actually still the same as before the pandemic. So there's no changes there. started the flight, it was almost empty. There was only 65 passengers. So, I mean, for us passengers, it was good because we have a lot of space, and but I don't think it's good for the business anyway, because if you only have 65 passengers instead of the normal 300 plus passengers, that's a business loss. But it was nice traveling on where there's plenty of space. People were lying across the chairs all night. And the other thing I've noticed, I think maybe people don't want to touch a lot of things. No one was actually not a lot of people were using the entertainment units. They preferred to use their own devices or to sleep. So the other negative thing I noticed with the flights, the food was of poor quality. It did look like they just went to a supermarket to get pre-cooked food and just come and warm them up. It was not really interesting. And again, because the flight was almost empty, I thought it was like moving faster than normal. But it was a nice, pleasant journey from Heathrow to Johannesburg. So it was a 12-hour flight to Johannesburg, and again, checking out on transit, we have to go all these checks for COVID. They wanted to know if your PCR was valid, and yeah, because ours was still within 72 hours, so we're fine. But if you happen to have an expired PCR results test, you're going to be tested again at your own expense, and then I think you're probably gonna pay about 800 rands, which is South African currency or more. But for us, it was smooth because my PCR results was within the period needed. The only negative, because we're in transit and getting flights to Botswana, our flight was like 6 hours later because there was not much flights. So, and we just have to spend some time in the airport. But there was no restaurant open. All the restaurants were closed. I think it's because of the pandemic again. They're not fully yet open. So we just have to buy all these yummy biscuits and yummy chocolates while we're waiting for our next flight to be due. So we had another smooth flight from Johannesburg to Gaborone, Botswana, and but getting to Botswana was another story because we have to go through again another COVID test. So we had so when we get to Botswana, we had to start queuing up for COVID test. They were doing the rapid COVID test, which is the lateral flow. So we have to queue. I think it took us about an hour and a half for us to be completely tested. And then after we finish the testing, again, we have to go through another queue again where they have to check if we have the valid PCR results. And but everything was fine, but it's just like the transition was very, very slow. But eventually I was home in Botswana. So saying that, welcome to Botswana. We will be sharing more blogs about Botswana and villages around Botswana. So keep in touch.